And what I mean by the pros and cons of these imposters is we did a lot of good things because of our parents. It's not like our parents are bad people. They had our best interest. But there's a lot of differences that we can't break away from because of the way that we were raised, right? It's just this was ingrained into our identity from a young age. And sometimes those things aren't great. Sometimes those are awesome. They could be great morals. Those could be good value systems. They could be, positivity. But also our parents might have been really negative. They might have always been fighting. They might have always been criticizing. They might have always been, negative Nancy and just thought really small. And if we're trying to achieve big things in sales and business, a lot of times like that ends up holding us back. And so, you look at a midlife crisis and, you ask yourself, like, why do people have these midlife crises? And so if you're listening or reading this or whatever, midlife crisis simply comes from, I was living my dad's life until I was 30, 40. And then my dad died. And then I woke up and I said, wow, I'm not trying to impress anybody anymore. And, you kind of have this identity of crisis because you go, what do I really want? And that is the whole root of a midlife crisis is really once a parent dies and you're kind of like, there's nobody that's like looking at me and paying attention to who I am and what I'm doing all the time. And so, you take the example of basketball. It's like, let's say your dad loved basketball as a kid and he grew up playing basketball, he played high school, he didn't go to college, and then all of a sudden, you're his kid and he's like, dude, we're going to learn basketball. And you start to love basketball and you're like, your dad's like, I'm going to take you to basketball practice. I'm going to put you in all the competitive leagues, X, Y, Z. And there's this kind of natural internal pressure to succeed at basketball because that's what your dad really liked. And then all of a sudden you grow up and, you're kind of like, man, do I even like basketball? You're going to practice and you're doing this thing and your dad's sitting in the sideline. He's like, yeah, you got it, son, you're a starter. And then there's a point in time where you kind of realize maybe you graduate, maybe you get married, maybe you move on and friends invite you to go play pickup and you're like, do I really like basketball or is that like what my dad always wanted me to do? And that's like a perfect example of, where an imposter's want had you by the balls when you didn't even know, you didn't even realize it. And probably enjoyed some of the time playing basketball, but you never really checked in with yourself and said, is this what I want? The next one would be social, and in the sense of a lot of this comes from status, and you look at social media and how many followers, how many likes, how many whatever subscribers. And that has so much to do with how you drive achievement. It's like, okay, I need to sell more. I need to do more because, if I don't, then I'm kind of like a bum on social media. Is my TikTok videos the best? Is my, Facebook videos the best? And, there's this kind of pressure to perform socially. And, with your friends, you go to a 10-year reunion and everybody sits in a circle, especially the masculine or male culture is, the first question you're going to ask would be, hey, how are things? And then what do you do for work? If you're in a 10-year reunion, there's this natural pissing match between men as they kind of haven't seen each other in a long time and they establish their dominance. It's a tribal thing. And one man, it'll eventually stand out probably within the first 15 minutes. This dudes all get together, ask yourself when you're listening to this, be like, when was the last time I was in a male situation? And, all of a sudden, the dude that's making the most money and has the hottest wife, all of a sudden becomes the macho. He becomes the alpha male in this situation. And then you'll watch all the other people kind of turn and start listening to him and kind of back down and pay their respect and their dues to the alpha male in that situation. And it's just funny to pay attention to these social interactions and how that status and achievement has so much to do with how you feel and in these tribal situations. And so a lot of times you kind of have to ask yourself, that ego self, is that showing up? Is that being like, man, I need to be the alpha male in these situations. I need to be seen. I need to be status. I need to have the right cars and the right house on Instagram or whatever that is. But is that, now check yourself and say, is that what I really want? Like, and why do I want that? And that's all part of this formula. So the next one would be religious. And this one's a big one for especially sales and business, is you can't make money because you're of the devil. And you'll turn good hearts in, money will turn these good hearts into evil energy. And that's something we've been taught. It's like, hey, it's easier for a poor man to make it to heaven than a rich man. Or, it talks about that, it's like fitting a camel through an eye of a needle, right? In the Bible. And, you're like, okay, so this has been ingrained in my head. Yet, you look at any business or church, a lot of them are very businessy and they're very flashy. They're a lot of money. They're very make a lot of money so you can pay us a lot of tithing. And yet there's this contradicting message where it's like, no, don't make a lot of money because then you won't go to heaven. And it's like, from a young age, a lot of us have been ingrained with this want of the religion to say, don't make a lot of money. And it's like, oh, well, now I'm conflicting because this society, my dad, everybody's telling me to make money. And then the Bible and God says, don't make money because you're of the devil. And you're like, what do I do? And now it creates this out of alignment situation, right? You're kind of like, what do I do? And so a lot of times, you have to ask yourself, like, okay, what am I paying attention to in the religion? Like, what is my soul asking for? What do I really want? And it's like, you can be humble and still make good money and still live a good life and still be very generous. You look at anything that's really come from massive impact from a humanitarian comes from people that have a lot of money. And, from, African orphanages to school systems to, it's the donation of tax money. It's the donation of tithing. It's the donation of charity. And those come from people that make money. And I think a lot of times, we get scrutinized for making money, and that brings us down. And so you ask yourself, on this imposter's wants, is this religious want trying to suck you back into the conforming? And, it's a sense of control, in my opinion. And, you got to ask yourself, what do I want? Not what the book says, not what the priest says, not what, what is it that I'm choosing to get, and why is that? And then the last one is your work environment. The fourth imposter would be your work environment. And this one's important. The work environment is either huge pro or huge con to the want. As much as you don't want to admit, if you had 10 salespeople in your organization and all 10 of them were making $50,000, it'd be very hard for you to go make $1 million that year, despite how good you are, despite your drive and how motivated you are. You're going to conform to the wants of everyone else. So nobody wants you as much as they say, I want you to make $1 million, even though they're making 50. Inside, the energetic level is going to pull you back because they're going to say, I don't want you to make $1 million. That would make me look like an idiot. I want you to make around what I'm making so I don't look like an idiot. So I'm going to subconsciously sabotage you so that you don't look too much better than the rest of us. That is what an environment does. And a work environment is going to play that game. A boss is going to play that game. Your boss might not be as good as you. I had a manager that I crushed. I sold twice as many as him. And it was almost like I felt guilty. I felt guilty when I sold twice as many as the manager that was above me. And, every day I'd kind of be like, hey, how'd you do? And, he's my boss. And I'm like, well, he's like, I got 1 or 2. And I'm like, oh, I got 5 today. And I didn't want to say that. I'm like, oh yeah, you had a good day. I'm learning from you. I didn't know how to handle this. And I eventually had to leave that boss. I had to go to somebody that was going to up-level me in a different way. And, I think that a lot of people get trapped in these work environments because of this friendship or because of this social pressure of their tribe that holds them back from selling what their true potential is, or that holds them back in business. They're like, I'm ready to freaking soar like an eagle, but you guys are all these chickens over here and you're flapping on the ground. How am I supposed to go do that? Now, asterisks. That doesn't mean the grass is always greener wherever you go. that doesn't mean you couldn't perform where you are. I'm just saying that these natural unsaid wants of the work imposter can either be detrimental or it can be astronomically beneficial. Take the opposite. I have a manager that's sewing 10 a day, whatever that is, and everybody on my team is making $1 million. I'm going to be like, fetch, I'm used to making $40,000 as a mechanic. Like, there is going to be these natural imposters' wants. They want you to not be this loser bum on a log while they're all making $1 million, and you're sitting there just like pooping like on a log. Like, that is not what they want. They're going to naturally outcast you the other way. So there's pros to these imposters' wants, but you have to be super aware of, well, maybe it isn't that I want to make $1 million. And I'm in this environment where everyone is making $1 million. Maybe I'm happy making $60,000. So then you have to ask yourself, okay, am I in the right environment? Is there this natural like friction in this work environment of their wants versus my wants? And I'm like really checking in internally and not justifying sucking, asterisks. You're not justifying, you're not trying to like talk yourself into sucking. You're actually okay making $60,000. Like, and in your mind, like you've wrapped your head around, like, that's comfortable. I want to live a better life. I don't want to be stressed like them. I don't want to be working 70, 80 hours a week. I want to work 30 hours a week and make $60,000 and spend time with my family. Like, and you're not letting the imposter's wants shift you out of alignment. And that would be a huge piece there. So